The year is 2042. Genesis Laboratories, a titan of genetic engineering, stands tall amidst swirling controversy. They have achieved the impossible, the birth of a human clone, code-named Subject 1. The clone rests within a controlled environment. Dr. Helena Radcliffe, the lead geneticist, gazed upon her creation with a mixture of trepidation and awe. Years of tireless research, countless sleepless nights, and ethical tightropes walked have led to this moment. Yet, a nagging question lingered in her mind. Had they crossed a line that could unravel the very fabric of humanity? Religious leaders cried abomination, ethicists grappled with existential questions, and legal experts braced for unprecedented legal battles. All the while, Subject 1 slumbered, oblivious to the storm it was about to unleash upon the world. The moment arrived with the silent intake of air. Subject 1's eyes fluttered open, revealing deep brown irises that mirrored humanity back at the awestruck observers. It was a stark reminder that this was no lab rat, no experiment, but a human being. News of the awakening spread like wildfire, igniting a global debate that raged across every media platform. Protests erupted outside Genesis Laboratories, a maelstrom of voices demanding answers, accountability, and perhaps even destruction. Inside the lab, Dr. Radcliffe found herself torn between her scientific curiosity and a growing sense of unease. The clone, though genetically identical to its donor, possessed a spark of consciousness that sent chills down her spine. She watched as Subject 1 began to explore his surroundings, his movements clumsy yet full of curiosity, like an infant discovering the world for the first time. The world was a tempest of opinions. Religious leaders declared it an affront to God, a violation of the sanctity of life. Ethicists grappled with the definition of personhood, questioning the clone's rights and freedoms. Legal experts scrambled to establish precedents in uncharted territory. Meanwhile, Subject 1, oblivious to the chaos he had unleashed, continued to learn and grow within the confines of his sterile world. He learned to speak, to read, to understand the world through the carefully curated information provided to him. Yet, there was a certain emptiness in his eyes, a longing for something beyond the cold metallic walls that held him captive. The weight of their creation pressed heavily on the scientists at Genesis Laboratories. Security tightened around the facility, a fortress against the storm of public opinion raging outside. Inside, however, a different storm brewed, a tempest of ethical dilemmas and moral uncertainties that threatened to consume them all. Subject 1, now named Adam after the first human, watched the world debate his existence through the lens of the lab's monitored internet access. He saw the protests, heard the impassioned pleas for his freedom and his destruction, and felt a profound sense of isolation. "Why am I here?" he asked Dr. Radcliffe one day, his voice echoing in the sterile confines of the lab. The question, simple yet profound, struck at the heart of the ethical debate raging outside. Dr. Radcliffe, taken aback by the unexpected query, found herself struggling for an answer. "You were created to further our understanding of genetics, to push the boundaries of science," she responded cautiously. But even as she spoke, she knew it was an incomplete answer, a half-truth that did little to address the existential crisis reflected in Adam's eyes. The truth was far more complex, far more ethically ambiguous. They had created him, yes, but for what purpose? To be studied, dissected, analyzed, or to be treated with the same dignity and respect as any other human being? Public outrage, fear, anger, and confusion. The world outside Genesis Laboratories was a cacophony of dissent. Protests raged, fueled by fear of the unknown and a deep-seated discomfort with the idea of manufactured human life. Religious groups decried it as an affront to God, a violation of the natural order. Bioethicists engaged in heated debates, their arguments echoing through the halls of academia and spilling onto the airwaves. Inside the lab, however, a different kind of chaos reigned. The scientists, once united in their pursuit of scientific advancement, were now fractured, their unity shattered by the ethical ramifications of their creation. Some, like Dr. Radcliffe, argued for Adam's rights, for his recognition as a human being deserving of respect and dignity. Others, however, saw him as nothing more than a scientific breakthrough, a means to an end. Echoes in the courtroom, the legality of life. The legal battle over Adam's fate was swift and brutal. Genesis Laboratories, citing their intellectual property rights, argued that Adam was their creation, a product of their research and therefore, their property. Opposing them was a coalition of human rights groups, religious organizations, and concerned citizens, all united in their belief that Adam, as a sentient being, deserved the same rights and protections as any other human. The courtroom became a battleground for the soul of humanity. Expert witnesses were called, their testimony scrutinized and dissected by sharp legal minds. The world watched with bated breath, the outcome of the trial poised to set a precedent for the future of human existence. A scientist's dilemma, playing God or advancing humanity. Dr. Radcliffe found herself at the center of the storm. Haunted by the ethical implications of her creation, she became an outspoken advocate for Adam's rights. She argued that while he may have been created in a lab, he was no less human than anyone else. He had thoughts, feelings, and a desire for connection that transcended his artificial origin. Her colleagues, however, remained divided. Some, blinded by their ambition and the allure of scientific advancement, saw Adam as a stepping stone to greater discoveries. They argued that to grant him human rights would be to stifle progress, to hinder the pursuit of knowledge that could benefit all mankind. Others, consumed by guilt and the fear of unintended consequences, retreated into the shadows, their silence speaking volumes. The debate raged on, a microcosm of the larger societal struggle to reconcile scientific progress with ethical responsibility. Shifting sands of morality, redefining personhood. The trial forced humanity to confront uncomfortable truths about itself. What did it mean to be human? Was it merely a matter of DNA? Or was there something more, something intangible that defied scientific explanation? The world held its breath, waiting for the verdict, the answer to a question that had haunted philosophers and theologians for centuries. The judge's decision, whatever it may be, promised to reshape the world as they knew it, to redefine the relationship between creator and creation. The implications were staggering. The clone's plea, a life beyond replication. In a surprising turn of events, the court granted Adam a voice. He sat before the court, a solitary figure in a sterile jumpsuit, his gaze flitting nervously between the judge, the jury, and the sea of faces in the gallery. The silence in the courtroom was palpable as he began to speak, his voice a soft tremor in the hushed atmosphere. "I may not have been born in the traditional sense," he began, his voice gaining strength as he went on, "but I am alive. I think, I feel, I dream. I long for connection, for purpose, for a life beyond these walls." His words, simple yet profound, resonated through the courtroom, chipping away at the preconceived notions and prejudices that had come to define him. He was not a monster, not an abomination, but a being yearning for understanding and acceptance. He spoke of his isolation, his thirst for knowledge, his desire to experience the world beyond the confines of the laboratory. Finding humanity, a reflection in the mirror. The judge's verdict, when it finally came, was less a legal decision and more a philosophical statement. Adam, she ruled, was not property, but a person, entitled to the same rights and protections as any other human being. The courtroom erupted in cheers and applause, a collective sigh of relief sweeping through the nation. The ruling sent shockwaves through society, challenging long-held beliefs and forcing humanity to confront the evolving definition of personhood in the face of groundbreaking scientific advancements. It was a victory not just for Adam, but for the very notion of human dignity, a reaffirmation that life, regardless of its origins, held inherent value. The world watched as Adam took his first tentative steps into a world that had once feared and rejected him. He approached each new experience with a childlike wonder, his eyes reflecting the joy of discovery and the burden of his unique existence. The future unfolds, living with the reality of cloning. The awakening of the first human clone marked a turning point in human history. It was a stark reminder that science, for all its wonders, was a double-edged sword, capable of both great good and terrible harm. The world had to adapt, to establish new ethical frameworks, to redefine its understanding of life itself. The debate over cloning continued, but the landscape had shifted. The focus was no longer on whether or not it should be done, but on how to ensure that it was done responsibly, ethically, and with a deep understanding of the profound implications for the future of humanity. Adam's story, once a source of fear and uncertainty, became a catalyst for dialogue, a springboard for a global conversation about the nature of humanity. the ethics of scientific advancement, and the responsibilities that came with wielding such power. He became an ambassador of sorts, bridging the gap between the world that created him and the future he represented.